The sun had just begun to warm the glossy skyline of downtown Los Angeles, and Isabella Reed was already late for her appointment. Her sports car glided through traffic, its polished silver hood reflecting the morning light. She wore designer sunglasses, diamond earrings, and the kind of expression that made waiters nervous. At 23, Isabella had everything: wealth, fame from her fashion influencer career, and a following that adored her perfect hair, her curated lifestyle, her effortless superiority. What she didn't have, though, was patience. She was due for a haircut at one of the city's most exclusive salons, until her stylist called with an emergency cancellation. "I'm so sorry, Bella," he'd said, "a migraine. Can we reschedule for tomorrow?" Tomorrow wouldn't do. She had a photo shoot that afternoon. Hair was everything. So, when she saw a man cutting hair on a busy sidewalk downtown, she laughed aloud. He was set up beside a small coffee cart, under a tattered umbrella, with an old mirror tied to a pole. A handwritten sign on cardboard read, "Cuts, $10. Pay what you can." The man looked to be in his 30s, tall, dark-skinned, with calm eyes and hands that moved with quiet precision. People came and went, leaving lighter, smiling, somehow freer. Isabella slowed her car, curiosity and disdain fighting in her mind. $10? She muttered. "You couldn't pay me to sit in that chair." She parked anyway, more to amuse herself than anything. As she stepped out, heads turned. She was used to that. Her heels clicked against the pavement as she approached the man. "You actually cut hair here?" she said, tilting her head, her voice dripping with disbelief. He smiled gently. "Yes, ma'am, I do. Been doing it a few years now. Would you like a cut?" She laughed, not kindly. "Here? On the street? Do you even have a license?" He didn't flinch. "Got one in my pocket, if that helps you feel better." She crossed her arms, smirking. "You realize people pay $500 for a trim in the city, right?" He looked at her, unfazed. "And yet they still come out with the same head." The people nearby chuckled. Isabella flushed. "Wow, a comedian and a barber. How charming." He nodded toward the chair. "You'd be surprised what a simple cut can change." Something about his tone, calm, almost knowing, irritated her. "Please," she said with a scoff. "You couldn't handle my hair." He raised an eyebrow. "Try me." She hesitated. Maybe it was pride, maybe curiosity, maybe the strange stillness in his eyes. But she sat down. "Fine. Let's see what a $10 haircut looks like." He draped a clean cloth over her shoulders and began to work. His hands were steady, his movements unhurried. At first, Isabella couldn't help herself. She filmed him for her social media story, mocking the street salon. But as he worked, something strange happened. The street noise faded. The scent of warm coffee and wind replaced her perfume. She caught her reflection in the mirror. Not the polished influencer, not the perfect facade, but a tired girl beneath layers of image and control. The man didn't speak much, but when he did, his voice was calm, thoughtful. "You know, people think the haircut changes how they look, but it's how they see themselves that really changes." She rolled her eyes. "That's deep for a sidewalk philosopher." He smiled faintly. "Maybe, but truth's simple. People just forget to look at it." When he finished, Isabella reached up to touch her hair and froze. It was perfect. Soft, layered, somehow effortless. Even better than her $500 salon cuts. How did you do this?" she stammered. He just smiled. "It's all about understanding people, not scissors." She pulled out a $100 bill and handed it to him. "Keep the change." He shook his head. $10, ma'am. That's all I charge." She frowned, confused. "Why? You could make a fortune." He looked around the street, the small crowd of regulars, the laughter, the sunlight hitting the old mirror. "Already got what I need." For a moment, she didn't know what to say. She left that day with perfect hair, and something else she couldn't quite name. A small crack in her pride. She didn't know it yet, but that $10 haircut would change far more than her reflection. It would change her life. The next morning, Isabella woke to the sound of her phone buzzing, dozens of notifications lighting up her screen. She groaned, shielding her eyes from the light. Then she saw the numbers. 25,000 new followers. 40,000 comments. "What the?" she muttered, sitting up in bed. It was her own video. the one she'd posted the day before to mock the street barber. Except now it wasn't being mocked, it was being shared. Someone had reposted it with the caption, "Rich influencer laughs at street barber. Then he gives her the best haircut she's ever had." People were commenting from all over the world. "Now that barber's a legend. Look how focused he is. She looks humbled for once." The internet had flipped the story. By noon, news outlets were calling it the $10 transformation. The man in the video, whom nobody knew by name, had become a symbol of grace, skill, and quiet strength. Isabella's agent, Dana, was furious. "Do you understand what you've done? You made yourself look like a snob and made him a hero." Isabella scrolled through the comments, cheeks burning. The video wasn't cruel exactly, but it showed her sneering, rolling her eyes, calling the barber street art gone wrong. And then, her face at the end, stunned silent when she saw the final result. "Find out who he is," she said quietly. "What for?" Dana snapped. "Damage control? Forget him. Just post something humble. Fake remorse. It'll blow over." But Isabella shook her head. "No, I want to talk to him." It took her 3 days to find him. He wasn't on Instagram, didn't use Twitter, and his name wasn't listed on any salon registry. But she remembered the sign, "Cuts $10," in the corner near the coffee cart. So one morning, she drove there again. The same tattered umbrella, the same mirror, the same calm man, trimming a little boy's hair as his mother watched with a tired smile. When he finished, she approached him, hesitant this time. He looked up and smiled politely. "Back for another cut, ma'am?" She swallowed hard. "I came to apologize." He tilted his head. "For what?" "For treating you like less, for laughing at you, for assuming that where you work says something about who you are." He nodded slowly, eyes kind. "It's easy to see people through your own window. Harder to step outside it." She bit her lip. "You saw the video?" "Someone showed me," he said. "A lot of people stop by now, thanks to you." "I didn't mean for it to—" He interrupted gently. "You didn't mean for it to show you what you needed to see." "But it did." Isabella felt tears sting her eyes. "You're right." He smiled faintly. "Don't worry, ma'am. I'm not mad. That video helped me too. Business is good. People see me now." She exhaled, relief and guilt mixing together. "You're amazing, you know that?" He chuckled. "Just a man with scissors and a dream." "What's your name?" she asked softly. "Marcus," he said, offering his hand. "Isabella," she replied, shaking it. "I know," he said with a small grin. "The whole world does." They talked for a long time, about hair, about people, about life. Marcus told her he used to work at a real salon before it closed, and instead of quitting, he took his skills to the streets. "I wanted people to feel good about themselves, even if they didn't have money, that's all." For the first time in years, Isabella felt small in the best way, grounded, humbled. Before she left, she asked, "Can I feature you properly? Not as a joke, as the artist you are?" Marcus smiled. "If it helps someone else see the good in people like me, sure. Just make sure the story's not about me cutting hair. Make it about what happens after." Isabella nodded, smiling through tears. "Deal." She didn't know it yet, but this second meeting wasn't the end of their story. It was the beginning of a friendship, and a project that would change both their lives forever. The weeks after Isabella's second visit to Marcus were unlike anything she had experienced before. Her social media feed, once filled with designer ads and travel shots, had become a steady stream of comments about kindness, humility, and authenticity. Her followers weren't asking where she bought her clothes anymore. They were asking about him, the man who cut hair on the street and spoke like a philosopher. At first, she tried to resist it. She told herself she wasn't responsible for anyone's story but her own. But every time she scrolled through her feed, she saw his calm face, those steady hands, that quiet wisdom. It haunted her, not with guilt anymore, but with something deeper. Respect. She decided to visit again, this time without cameras, makeup, or her publicist. It was early morning when she arrived. The street was still damp from overnight rain, and Marcus was just setting up. He nodded when he saw her. "Morning, Ms. Reed." "Just Isabella," she said softly, smiling. "You're still at it." Every day, he said. People don't stop needing a little care. She watched as he worked, trimming an elderly man's beard with gentle precision. The man handed him $1 and thanked him like he'd just given him a gift. There was no pity here, only humanity. When Marcus finished, Isabella stepped closer. Marcus, she said, you ever think about opening a real shop? A place of your own? He chuckled. Sure, but that takes money and freedom. I've got the skill, not the savings. She hesitated. What if I could help? He looked up, eyebrows raised. You? I owe you, she said simply. That haircut. It didn't just change how I looked, it changed how I saw myself. I've spent my whole life selling people perfection. Maybe it's time I helped create something real. He studied her for a moment. Why? She took a deep breath. Because when I sat in your chair, I wasn't an influencer or a brand. I was just me. And that was the first time in a long time I felt human again. Marcus smiled faintly. You really mean that? I do, she said. Let me invest in you. Not as charity, as a partner. He laughed, shaking his head. You've got no business getting involved with a guy who cuts hair on a sidewalk. She met his eyes. Maybe that's exactly the kind of business I should be in. That afternoon, they found an empty storefront 2 blocks away. A narrow space with peeling paint, cracked tiles, and sunlight streaming through dusty windows. Isabella stood in the middle of the floor and saw not decay, but potential. We could call it something simple, she said. Something that feels like what you do. Marcus grinned. How about the honest cut? She smiled. Perfect. Over the next few months, Isabella used her platform to raise awareness, not about herself, but about community. She launched a campaign online, Cuts That Care. Donations poured in from across the country. People offered mirrors, chairs, paint, even free labor. Marcus worked side by side with her every day, sanding walls, cleaning windows, and setting up his old mirror on the new wall. By the time they opened, the shop was alive with warmth. Old regulars from the street, new clients from the city, and people who just wanted to feel seen. The walls were covered with photos of smiling faces and a quote written above the door. Everyone deserves to feel seen. On opening day, Isabella stood beside Marcus, greeting people as they came in. Cameras flashed again, reporters this time. But this story wasn't about scandal or pride. It was about redemption. When someone asked Isabella why she did it, she smiled. Because sometimes the best lessons come from people the world walks past. Marcus looked at her, a quiet pride in his eyes. You've come a long way from the girl who laughed at me. She smiled. And you've come a long way from the man who only charged $10. He laughed. Still do. That day, the Honest Cut became more than a barber shop. It became a sanctuary. And for Isabella Reed, it wasn't just a partnership. It was the first time she realized that true beauty didn't start in a mirror. It started in the heart. The day the Honest Cut opened, it felt like the entire city had gathered to see what had been born from a $10 haircut and a lesson in humility. The old storefront had been transformed. Walls painted warm terracotta, sunlight flooding through spotless windows, mirrors trimmed with reclaimed wood, and the faint scent of sandalwood in the air. But for Isabella, the true change wasn't in the space. It was in herself. For the first time in her life, she wasn't the one being watched. She was the one watching others find confidence. She arrived early that morning, wearing jeans and a plain t-shirt. No luxury brands, no makeup team, no photographers. Marcus was already there, sweeping the floor even though it didn't need it. Nervous? She asked, sipping her coffee. He grinned. You kidding? This is the easiest part. The hard part was believing this could happen. Isabella smiled softly. You believed. I just gave it a little push. No, he said, looking up at her. You stopped being afraid of what people thought. That's worth more than money. By 10 a.m., the shop was packed. People from all walks of life came. Lawyers, construction workers, students, retirees. Some recognized Isabella immediately, but most didn't care. They weren't there for her anymore. They were there because they'd heard of Marcus, the man who cut hair on the streets and changed people's lives with his words. Isabella moved from chair to chair, greeting customers, offering coffee, sweeping stray hairs. A young woman sat nervously in Marcus's chair, holding a job interview flyer. Big day? Isabella asked kindly. The girl nodded. I haven't worked in almost a year. I want to look like I belong. Marcus smiled as he began to cut. You already do. By the time he finished, the young woman was crying, not from sadness, but from seeing herself again. Isabella felt tears sting her own eyes as she handed the girl a mirror. Go get that job, she said. As the day wore on, something extraordinary happened. The line outside grew, not with people looking for a cheap haircut, but with those looking for hope. Someone brought sandwiches, another donated a sign that read, Cuts That Care. Reporters came, but Marcus told them gently, Don't write about me. Write about them, the people who walk in feeling small and leave standing tall. That night after they locked up, Isabella sat in one of the chairs, exhausted but glowing. Marcus, she said, you could have done this without me. He chuckled. Maybe, but it wouldn't have meant the same. You saw something in me and in yourself. Most people never get that far. She looked at her reflection in the mirror. Her hair had grown out a little since that first day. Softer, natural, unstyled. For once, she liked it that way. Funny, she said quietly. I used to think my reflection was everything. Now I see it's just a reminder of who I've become. Marcus leaned on the counter beside her. You found what matters. She nodded. And it wasn't in the mirror. They turned off the lights, leaving the faint glow of the neon sign outside, the honest cut. It shimmered against the glass like a promise, a reflection of everything they'd both learned. For Isabella Reed, the girl who once mocked a street barber, life had come full circle. She had built empires out of vanity, but it took a man with calloused hands and a $10 sign to teach her the meaning of real beauty. As they stepped out into the night, the city lights danced on the wet pavement, and she whispered to herself, sometimes it's not the haircut that changes you, it's the person holding the scissors.